Hello everyone. In today's lecture, we are going to continue with the concept of free consent, and we have already discussed some of the areas which lead to an unfree consent. We have already discussed coercion, we discussed misrepresentation, we have also discussed undue influence. Today we are going to start our discussion on the concept of fraud. So fraud basically has been defined in section 17 of the Indian Contract Act, and it says that if any of the following acts, within which 5 subpoints are there, any of these following acts have been either committed by a party to the contract or with his connivance, which means with his willingness or knowing, with his knowledge, it has been done by his agent with an intention to deceive the another party. So either the party to the contract has himself or herself done the fraud, or with his knowledge or with her knowledge, his or her agent has done this, and the intention of doing any such act was to deceive the other party or the other party's agent and to make them enter into the contract. Now, what are these acts that can be performed and lead to fraud? First is suggestion of falsehood. That means that you are representing a fact to be true when you are aware that it is not true. So you know something, that what you are saying is not correct, is not a factual thing, but still you are saying this. That is suggestion of falsehood. Then is suppression of a fact, which means that you are willingly, knowingly concealing, hiding certain important facts about the thing. Then a promise, if it is made without the intention of performing it. So you are making a promise, but at the time of making the promise only, you do not have any intention to fulfill it. You are having an intent to deceive the other party. Then it says any other act fitted to deceive, and any such act or omission as the law specially declares to be fraudulent. These are basically the miscellaneous provisions which have been kept so that in the coming times, in future, if anything new comes out, if any new kind of deception or fraud comes in, that can be covered under the act. Now, one very important thing related to fraud is that if somebody is simply silent about the facts, although the person may be knowing about the facts, but simply because he or she has been silent about the facts, um, do not necessarily mean that it is a fraud. So court says that, if the silence about a particular fact has to be treated as a fraud, then it will only be in two cases. One, wherein it was the duty of this person to say or to tell those facts. For example, there are certain relationships wherein the court says that you cannot be silent, you cannot hide the facts. For example, fiduciary relationships that we discussed about, wherein the relationship of trust is there between, say, doctor and patient. Therein it is the duty of the doctor to tell all the facts. So therein the doctor cannot be silent, right? Uh, then in insurance contracts, right? Similarly, when the contract between the share allottees and the company is there, so there are certain kind of contracts wherein it is compulsory for the party, wherein it is important for the party to disclose all the facts. Therein silence will amount to fraud, but in other cases it might not amount to fraud. Similarly, if in the circumstances that are given, the silence is equivalent to speech, right? Say for example, while buying a particular good, when I'm buying it from the shop, if there is some defective good, right, placed over there, maybe the shopkeeper is aware कि उसमें कुछ छोटा सा minute defect है, but मैं उसको notice नहीं करती हूँ और मैं उसको purchase कर लेती हूँ. Until and unless I'm asking something, unless the shopkeeper is saying something, he's just keeping silent. It's my decision to buy that product, and I have not taken any opinion of the shopkeeper. Therein, the shopkeeper is under no obligation to tell me about the facts. ठीक है, तो अगर वो कुछ नहीं बोलते हैं, वहां पे अगर साइलेंस होती भी है, it will not amount to fraud. हाँ, लेकिन अगर मैं वो प्रोडक्ट खरीद रही हूँ और खरीदते टाइम आई टेल द शॉपकीपर दैट सी आई एम बाइंग दिस प्रोडक्ट, ठीक है, आपको ठीक लग रहा है ना, शॉपकीपर से हाँ जी बिल्कुल ठीक प्रोडक्ट है, एंड आई से भाई देख लो, अगर आप कुछ भी नहीं बता रहे हो इसके बारे में तो आई एम अज्यूमिंग कि इसमें कोई भी डिफेक्ट नहीं है. यहाँ पे साइलेंस बिकम्स इक्विवेलेंट टू स्पीच, क्योंकि मैंने कहा अगर आप कुछ नहीं कह रहे हो तो मैं ये मान के चल रही हूं कि इसमें कोई खराबी नहीं है. देन herein if he still keeps silent knowing that there is a defect, then it will become a fraud. So these are the explanations to the points that have been given in section 17. Suggestion of falsehood, that is you are representing a fact to be true when it is not true. The active concealment of a fact, suppression of a fact by somebody who is having a knowledge about that particular fact. Fine, and then we have already discussed that, you know, the doctrine of caveat emptor, it says that let the buyer beware. So seller is not bound to disclose the defect in goods to the buyer. So every time simply silence would not mean that this is fraud. Then when a promise has been made without any intention of performing it, for example, we have said that I have a credit card and I purchase goods on that credit card. Now the payment for the credit card has to be made at a later date. When I have been using that credit card, I knew beforehand that I'm insolvent. I'm not having enough money to pay back to the credit card, but I still took the goods. I still purchased the goods on credit card. It means what? That I have made a promise that I'll be paying on a future date when actually I was having no intention of paying because I knew I cannot pay. So this would constitute a fraud. Then any other fact which is any other act which is fitted to deceive or any other omission, these are basically, as I told you, miscellaneous or residual clauses which have been entered into. Now there are certain points related to fraud which have been derived from the judicial interpretations. They are not explicitly written in the Indian Contract Act, but over a period of time through the judicial interpretations, these are the facts that we have come to know about. First, it has been held in various cases that there is no fraud without damages. So the other party, the aggrieved party who is filing a case that my consent has been taken under fraud or I have been frauded, they will have to prove that they have suffered damages because of this fraud. If there are no damages, the fraud does not exist as per the court of law. उसके लिए आप केस तभी फाइल करोगे अगर उस फ्रॉड की वजह से आपको नुकसान हुआ है. Then expression of opinion does not amount to fraud. This is again another important thing. It says that if somebody is simply giving an opinion about a particular product or is simply telling you that in my opinion I think this is a good product or in my opinion this is how it is going to work. So on the basis of opinion you cannot say that this is a fraud. फ्रॉड कब है? जब वो फैक्चुअल इंफॉर्मेशन को गलत रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं, नोइंग कि वो गलत रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं. Then the party should have been induced to enter into the contract due to the fraudulent information. It is very important for the party to prove that I entered into the contract because of this fraudulent expression, because of this fraudulent information that was given to me. It means what? If this fraudulent information was not given to me, I would not have entered into the contract at all, right? Say for example, if we talk about someone buying shares in a company, right, who has been allotted the shares in the company. Now the person who is buying these shares is generally dependent upon the prospectus. Fine. Now let us say that one of the persons who is buying the share later on says that there was a fraudulent statement, there was a misstatement about one of the directors of the company, and so this is a fraud, and I have been allotted the shares on the basis of this prospectus information. I took the shares, and this is a fraud with me. Now, if the company is able to prove that actually this person who has taken the shares is not even aware about that director, does not know anything about this director जिसके बारे में एक misstatement गई थी, तो इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि मैंने प्रोस्पेक्टस में देखकर जब शेयर्स खरीदे, उस पर्सन ने जब वो शेयर्स खरीदे प्रोस्पेक्टस में देखकर, तो उसको तो उस डायरेक्टर के बारे में कुछ पता ही नहीं था, तो उस डायरेक्टर के बारे में मिस स्टेटमेंट आई या उस डायरेक्टर के बारे में ठीक स्टेटमेंट आई, मैं उसके ऊपर डिपेंडेंट होकर शेयर्स नहीं खरीदूंगी, right? I will buy shares on the factual information of the company. Yes, if I know somebody, right? If there is a known personality, और कोई नोन पर्सनालिटी आपके प्रोस्पेक्टस में आपने एज डायरेक्टर शो किया है और उनके बारे में कुछ गलत रिप्रेजेंटेशन दिया, वो डायरेक्टर नहीं है बट आपने उनको डायरेक्टर रिप्रेजेंट कर दिया, एंड देन समबडी बाइज द शेयर, देन इट कैन बी अ फ्रॉड, कि हमने सोचा ये भी डायरेक्टर हैं कंपनी में, ही इज अ नोन फिगर, इसलिए हमने शेयर्स खरीद लिए, लेकिन ये डायरेक्टर हैं ही नहीं, तो हमारे साथ फ्रॉड हुआ। लेकिन कोई ऐसी चीज जिससे आपके कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में एंटर करने पर इम्पैक्ट नहीं आता, वो आपके कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में एंटर करने को कहीं से भी डेविएट नहीं करती, कोई ऐसी इंफॉर्मेशन अगर है तो इट विल नॉट लीड टू फ्रॉड। Then, as I said that this is a very important point in fraud, that when, at what times will silence amount to fraud? Does silence amount to fraud at all or not? In the Indian Contract Act, it has been given as an explanation to the section 17, wherein they say that mere silence about the facts, right, to which can impact somebody's entering into a contract is not a fraud, unless what? First thing, it is the duty of the person who is keeping silence to speak up. So whenever the contracts are based on good faith, right, we call this as Ubrima Fede contracts. So when the contracts are based on good faith, when the one of the parties cannot ascertain the facts on their own, they have to rely on what the other party is saying. In such cases, the silence will amount to fraud, which includes what? The fiduciary relationships, the relationships of trust, the insurance contracts, the contract of marriage engagement, right, and the share allotment contracts, because all these contracts are the ones wherein one of the parties cannot know about the facts on their own. They are dependent on the other party to know about the facts. So herein it becomes the duty of the person entering into the contract to give all the information that he or she has before the other party enters into the contract, because in these cases it is their duty to disclose the facts. So if they remain silent in any of these, then it will lead to fraud. And the next thing, as I told you, when silence in itself is equivalent to speech. So whenever it is such that silence will be equivalent to speech, somebody is saying that if you do not deny it or if you do not say anything, I assume that this piece is good, this product is good, this is going to be promised in the service, whatever, and still the person does not says anything, then the silence becomes equivalent to speech. Now we will discuss about the impact of fraud. In this slide, if you would see, I have compared it with the other kind of impacts as well. For example, the impact of coercion and undue influence and impact of misrepresentation, because for all these it is dealt with in section 19 and section 19A, the voidability of agreements because of coercion and undue influence, because of fraud and because of misrepresentation. But there are certain differences in all the three cases, so we will discuss them at once. Coercion and undue influence, as we said, it is voidable at the option of a aggrieved party. Same is the case in case of fraud. If it is because of fraud, it is voidable at the option of the aggrieved party. In case of misrepresentation, the law says that it is voidable at the option of aggrieved party, provided that such party had no means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. And at times it becomes applicable in case of fraud as well. So the court tries to see that the party, the aggrieved party who is saying that my consent was taken with misrepresentation or with fraud, were they having any means, were they having any chance of discovering the truth if they would have been a bit more prudent, अगर वो थोड़ा ध्यान से देखते या ध्यान से चीजों को सुनते या थोड़ा सा attentive रहते, then maybe they could have actually discovered the truth. अगर ऐसा है तो उसे misrepresentation या fraud में नहीं गिना जाता. Then in coercion and undue influence, simply the other point related to the impact on the agreements, on the contracts, is that the principle of restitution will apply. In case of coercion, it is complete restitution, and in case of undue influence, the principle of equitable restitution is there, which we have already discussed in our previous class. Now, what happens in case of fraud? If it is a fraud due to silence, right, it will not be voidable if the aggrieved party had the means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. तो वो वाला जो पॉइंट है जो मैं आपको मिसरिप्रेजेंटेशन में बता रही थी, वो यहाँ पर कवर होता है किन फ्रॉड के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में, जहां पर फ्रॉड साइलेंस की वजह से हुआ है, दैट दी पार्टी, जो सामने वाली पार्टी है, वो चुप रही, ठीक है, जहां उन्हें चुप नहीं रहना चाहिए था, बट दे वर साइलेंट एंड इट लेड टू फ्रॉड. वहां पर कोर्ट ये देखेगा कि क्या अग्रीव्ड पार्टी के पास ऐसे मीन्स थे, ऐसे चांस था that they could have discovered the truth. If so, then it will not be taken as fraud. But yes, if there was no means, अगर उन्हें उन्हीं की बातों पर, सामने वाले की बात पर ही डिपेंड करना था, अगर सामने वाला नहीं बताता, उनके पास कोई और तरीका नहीं था पता करने का, then it will amount to fraud. In case of fraud due to silence, fine. In all other cases, it says under the fraud, the third point, that the aggrieved party can insist on performance of contract and being put in a position in which he would have been if representations made had been true. This we have already discussed under the point of misrepresentation as well, and this point is covered under both. Second point under misrepresentation and third point under fraud. It is the same in both the cases, that as an aggrieved party, I can go to the court and I can either say that you resigned the contract, or I can say that I want this contract to be carried forward, I want this contract to be fulfilled, and I should be put in a position where I would have been if whatever wrong information has been given to me, whatever misrepresentation has been done, if that was actually true, then whatever position I would have been in, I should be put in that position. And last is principle of restitution applies. In case of fraud and misrepresentation, the difference is that in case of fraud, रेस्टिट्यूशन में हम क्या कहते हैं कि अगर मेरी तरफ से कुछ गया था तो वो वापस आ जाएगा, कुछ कंसिडरेशन गया था मॉनेटरी टर्म्स में, नॉन मॉनेटरी टर्म्स में, दैट हैज टू बी रिटर्न्ड बैक टू मी, एंड अलोंग विद दैट द अग्रीव्ड पार्टी कैन आल्सो स्यू फॉर डैमेजेस, कि मुझे कुछ नुकसान हुआ है, along with whatever I have already paid, उस नुकसान के लिए भी मुझे पेमेंट की जाए. This is possible in case of fraud. What happens in case of misrepresentation? The principle of restitution applies, but the aggrieved party cannot claim the damages. So only the portion that you have paid, you have given in that contract will be returned back to you. But along with that, you cannot claim or you cannot sue for any further damages. That is possible only and only if your consent has been taken with fraud. Now, let us see what is the exception to this section 19, which is related to silence only. If such consent was caused by misrepresentation or by silence, then as I have already told you, if the party whose consent has been taken because of misrepresentation or silence could have discovered the truth with ordinary diligence, then in that case, the section 19 would not be applicable, the contract would not be voidable. Let us see the example. There's a person A who has an intention to deceive B and falsely represents that 500 mons of indigo are made annually at A's factory, and due to this the B enters into the contract to buy the factory. तो A ने अपनी फैक्ट्री के प्रोडक्शन के बारे में बताया कि मेरी प्रोडक्शन में एनुअली 500 मॉन्स ऑफ इंडिगो जो है वो प्रोडक्शन होता है, and on the basis of this fact B bought the factory. In this case the contract is voidable at the option of B. Fine. Now the same case is there that A misrepresents and tells B that 500 mons of indigo are made annually at A's factory. Now after getting this statement from A, B looks at the books of accounts of the factory, and the books of accounts clearly show that only 400 mons of indigo are made annually. So this means what? That now B had the means of discovering the truth because he has already seen the books of accounts, or the books of accounts were available for inspection. B looked at those books of accounts and could clearly have seen that there are only 400 mons that are being produced, although A has said that 500 mons of indigo are produced. Now if still B buys the factory, then the contract is not voidable. Why? Because B had the means of discovering the truth with ordinary diligence. So this is how the explanation to that point comes. Now, whenever there is coercion, undue influence, misrepresentation or fraud, there are certain points in case of which the right to rescind the contract, the right to set aside the contract is lost out. First is affirmation, which means जो aggrieved party है, जिनका consent, coercion या undue influence या misrepresentation या fraud से लिया गया था, they agree to go ahead with the contract either through words, written or oral, or through conduct, right? So if they give an affirmation to that transaction, then the right of rescission is lost. Restitution is not possible in certain cases. So if the subject matter, right, that has been taken, that is being talked about, that is a part of the contract, has been consumed or it has got destroyed, then in that case restitution will not be possible. Restitution possible नहीं है तो आप resign नहीं कर पाओगे contract. Lapse of reasonable time, right? So reasonable time has not been defined anywhere as such. It would depend upon the court of law. But if you are unnecessarily delaying it, if you are say getting up after 7 years, 8 years and saying कि वो तब हमारे साथ fraud हुआ था या तब हमारा consent coercion से लिया गया था. So depending upon the circumstances of the case, the court might feel that the reasonable time has already lapsed out and this case cannot be taken further. Last is when the rights of third party intervenes. So before rescinding the contract, if there is a third party who acquires certain rights to that product in good faith, उस third party को नहीं पता कि पहली दो parties के बीच में क्या हुआ, third party ने वो product ले लिया, उसके पास वो rights चले गए in good faith, then before the rescission of the contract, then it might be possible that it becomes tough to rescind such a contract, right? There is this case of Phillips versus Brooks Limited 1919, wherein a fraudster bought a ring from Phillips, right, by impersonating someone. तो कुछ किसी और की तरह बनकर, who he or she actually was not, bought a ring from Phillips, पूरी payment नहीं की, check sign कर दे दिया, and took the ring with him or her. वो ring लेकर चले गए. Now when the check was presented for clearance in the bank, it did not get clear, bounce हो गया check क्योंकि वो signature fraudulent signature थे, right? So I represent myself to be somebody else. I go to a shop and I tell them that I am a very rich person. They know that person by name और वो मान के उस बात को मुझे एक ring दे देते हैं. मैं check sign करके दे आती हूँ कि आप इसको encash करा लेना, ring मुझे आज ही चाहिए. उन्होंने मुझे ring दे दी, check बाद में bounce हो गया. So when it did not clear, and Phillips came to know that actually the person who has taken the ring from me was a fraudster, till that time वो जो रिंग थी वो ऑलरेडी एक तीसरी पार्टी के पास चली गई थी, ब्रूक्स एंड लिमिटेड के पास। और ब्रूक्स एंड लिमिटेड जो है वो एक बोनाफाइड पार्टी थी। ब्रूक्स एंड लिमिटेड को नहीं पता था कि ये रिंग जो है फ्रॉड से ली गई है, तो उन्होंने गुड फेथ में वो रिंग जो है ली और उसके अगेंस्ट लोन दे दिया उस फ्रॉडस्टर को। Now when the case was filed, Phillips filed the case against Brooks Limited and said कि ये रिंग मेरी है, मुझसे फ्रॉड से लेकर कोई गया और उन्होंने ये चेक साइन करके दिया जो बाउंस हो गया, तो ये रिंग मुझे वापस दी जानी चाहिए। The court held that Brooks Limited has taken it in good faith. It is the third party. उनका उस fraudulent conduct में कहीं कोई लेना देना नहीं था, तो Brooks Limited will remain a legal owner of the ring. क्योंकि वो प्लेज्ड रिंग थी, यानी कि उसके अगेंस्ट कुछ पैसा लिया गया था। इफ दैट मनी इज रिटर्न टू ब्रूक्स लिमिटेड, देन दैट रिंग कैन बी टेकन बैक। But now, because a third party is into picture, that third party is a bona fide party, it had no knowledge of the fraud, so the ring belongs to this third party. Our next topic is the mistake and how does it leads to unfree consent, which we will discuss in the next lecture.